Okay, welcome, ladies and gents. We have got a big one today. We've got a lot to cover here then. Let's begin with the main story that we need to go over. Iran has raised their red flag for only the second time in modern days. I'm not going to go over the whole sort of, you've probably seen it all over the news. You know what's going on. I'm not going to cover all of that today. Because the news is extremely biased both ways. So what I'm going to do is go over some facts. We're going to look at it from an economic point of view and what this could actually mean and how it could impact you. So firstly then, what's happened? Embassies in the Middle East are currently being evacuated as we speak, as Iran vows swift retribution. And of course, they have flown the red flag, which is very symbolic. That's a sort of I believe that's from the Shiite aspect, very symbolic meaning, which is all around revenge and retribution. So they have raised the red flag. They have vowed retaliation, and they're even saying this could lead to a full-scale war in the Middle East. But also, there's a couple of other things. We could see, as a result of this, a global energy crisis, potentially. I'll go through all my reasons why. I don't necessarily think that is going to happen based on what we've seen previously and the sort of axis or the alliance in the Middle East with Saudi and some of the other countries. But we definitely could see some economic fallout from this. What most people don't realize is that they say, well, what is that? Why is that relevant to me? I'm a business owner, or why would that make any difference to me? The reason it can make a lot of difference is because if this affects oil prices, and oil prices rise, that affects everything. It affects the entire economy. So it is a big deal. So that we're going to unpack all of this today. We've also got a lot of other things to talk about. The UK as well. Talk about things going on in the UK. We have got some massive data coming out on imports to the US, and exports from UK, China have just dropped off a cliff. We're seeing some really big global repercussions of all of this. And just a reminder, we're going to talk about a couple of other things as well, but just a reminder, if you haven't signed up for the gold and silver program, gold is spiking yet again. Gold's up on the week, silver is up on the week. You can find that in the description here, the links. Until that is finished in terms of the recording, because I'm still pre-recording everything, it's still going to be a massive sale on that. And then once it's complete, the price is going to go all the way up to full price. So you can get a good discount on the gold and silver course, and it will teach you macroeconomics as well at the same time for a really, really low price. It's always funny when people say, my son went to university, my daughter went to university, and they said they learned more in some of your courses from the macroeconomics geopolitical standpoint than they did in some of these entire modules at university. And it's really because I just compact it all. I make it very, very granular. I want to talk about jobs as well as we go through the stream. There's some massive things going on with jobs. So how could Iran retaliate here then? And again, I'm not going to cover all the military aspect and who did what to who. Already I saw, just massive bias from both sides today, completely unfactual journalism saying why these attacks happened, why these strikes happened, how it was, there isn't really any unbiased coverage on this. So you've got to really do your own research and look into the history, not, okay, this happened in April. Yeah, but why did that happen in April? Well, that happened also in April. This happened in March. This happened in February. It goes way back. It is just an ongoing conflict here. So how could they retaliate then? We could see missile, drone strikes. We could see Israeli cities, military bases, nuclear facilities targeted. This could provoke a full-scale counterattack, or even US as well. The US could get involved. Now, what's interesting is I did look at the US response, and what I thought was interesting here was Trump actually said, make a deal or attacks will be more brutal, right? You've seen that he's put these posts out. But then the US administration said that they are trying to distance themselves from the Israeli strikes on Iran. So we've got two sort of counter stories going on here, One saying, you know, make a deal now or it's going to be more brutal. The other side is saying, we didn't know about it, we were not involved, don't target our bases. And we'll go on to that a little bit more because there's a lot of context and details on that. So another thing I thought was quite interesting was the UK response. Now, the UK said they are not planning to help protect against these retaliatory strikes on nuclear or military targets. In other words, they said they're not going to get involved in this. UK defence sources say there aren't any UK plans to help protect Israel or any other country. In October 2024, this is interesting, when Iran fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at Israel unprovoked. Actually, it was in response, so the word unprovoked needs to be removed. Britain, and again, I want to just be clear, because even making a statement like that, people will say, oh, he's on Iran's side. Or if I say another statement, they'll say, he's on Israel's side. I want to be clear. My role is to look at the facts unbiased, not to take a side. I'll leave that to other commentators. They'll do all that. But what I'm saying is, you'll see in the media that they will add words. They'll say, this was unprovoked, that was unprovoked, or they'll justify the strikes. Yesterday they'll say, and they've said that this was required, this needed to happen because Israel felt threatened by Iran having a nuclear program, right? So again, you've got to read into it all, make your own decisions. It's completely for you to do that. But Britain, here we go, said 2 of its fighter jets and air-to-air refueling tankers played a part in attempts to prevent further escalation. This was previously, of course, but that the jets did not engage any targets. Now, the way they're kind of making that out is that we were there to help, but we didn't actually get involved because we didn't want to, show that we were taking sides, etc., and doing strikes and everything else. No, that's not true. The reason they didn't intercept any of those ballistic missiles is because they couldn't. Britain did not have the technology to capture and intercept those ballistic missiles because of the speed that they go. People think Iran's this backwards nation, hasn't got advanced military and things like that. And in the most part, they don't. But some of their fighters, some of these missiles are very, very advanced. They will give a lot of countries a run for their money. I mean, I won't go into all the details on that today, but you can look into this and see all this. Britain was not involved they also made a statement, Britain was not involved in Israel's strikes against the nuclear and military targets overnight, and the UK Prime Minister has said that he urges restraint and a return to diplomacy. Now this is over. It's not over. It's definitely not over. This is going to now escalate. Okay. So what could we see here? There's a lot of things. We could see proxy attacks via, and again, as soon as I use the keywords, the video is going to get censored. So I have to be really, because we're streaming not just to all these other platforms, but also to YouTube as well. So I've just got to be careful. But the Lebanese militia, the ones in Yemen, we'll use these terms, Iraqi militias. And this is where we could see the proxy attacks ramping up. The Strait of Hormuz could see a blockade there. They could mine, harass, or just shut down the choke point. This would disrupt up to 20% of the world's oil supply. Now, we'll come on to that shortly. I've got a couple of views on that. But this would be seen as a red line by the US and Gulf states. And I do think it would trigger more military intervention. We could also see cyber attacks, though. This could be targeting Israeli infrastructure, power grids, water systems, financial institutions. We could see terror attacks abroad, or even more, because we're seeing these on an almost daily basis now, though, even though it's not in the media, of course, but we're seeing this on almost a daily basis. So we could see a lot of things taking place. So what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? Best case, Iran retaliates symbolically, i.e. they launch a limited strike on isolated military targets, could be cyber, it could be proxy action. As a result of that, Israel could hold back a full military response. Diplomatic efforts could then de-escalate these tensions, and then oil markets can calm without a major supply shock. So I would say that's the best case scenario. Many of you will go, Wow, that is bad. That sounds really bad to me. But that is, I'd say, a best case scenario. Worst case scenario, then, are you ready for this one? Iran launches a barrage of missiles at major cities. These, especially if they're ballistic, good luck intercepting them. You might intercept some of them, but most of them will get through. They just don't have the technology to stop these ballistic missiles. They're so fast and difficult because of the way they change direction. So difficult to actually intercept. You could see a massive strike back. This would be a major escalation, but you could even see US bases, that's Iraq, Syria, Bahrain, all being attacked as well. That would probably, I would say, force the US into conflict or even warfare. So this could be a major, major escalation. And I think they're probably, both sides are looking into this right now. They could completely close the Strait of Hormuz. That could be close. You'd see oil spike to, by my calculations, maybe around $150 a barrel if that took place. Global spike in inflation. That's what would result because the oil input costs for energy. We definitely see a recession in many countries as well. You could even see stock markets crashing as a result of this. What else could we see? Cyber attacks spreading to the west. They've probably already got backdoors into certain institutions. You could see a massive front opening up in some of these other nations. Saudi and Gulf states could be forced into the equation. That would be another one. I mean, seriously, this could be massive, massive, full-scale conflict in the region with massive global economic output falling. So and I'm telling you, it's a serious thing that's taken place here. I don't think many people even saw this coming, what took place overnight. But the red flag is a big one. This is only the second time it's been raised. So let me just give you the meaning of the red flag then. This is a symbol of revenge. Okay, here it is. It's Shiite tradition. The red flag represents unresolved blood, especially that of someone who has not yet been avenged. So I assume they're talking about the generals, the military commanders that were taken out, also all the nuclear scientists that were taken out overnight. There's also a religious context to it. This can't read this out, some of the words here, but it calls for a comparable response. Political signal. This is it's a version of raising the flag for war. So this is pretty serious, ladies and gents. They have publicly committed to revenge, military or proxy action, and they're now rallying public support for what comes next. So big changes coming, really serious things. If you don't know what actually took place, I'll just briefly summarize a couple of points. There was 100 targets hit, including nuclear facilities. Iran said this is a declaration of war. The Israeli officials indicated the strikes were part of the first phase of a much larger operation. And this is because Iran has continued with its nuclear program. Israel says that they don't have their permission to do this. And also their ballistic missile program, they've asked them previously not to continue with the ballistic missile program, and they've continued to do it. So that is their reason, they say, for the strikes. The Iranian state media said that the head of the Revolutionary Guards was killed, the army general chief of staff also, commander of the joint forces, so many nuclear scientists, many of their nuclear scientists, the head of Iran's atomic energy organization, so many other people, quite senior people that were taken out by the strikes. It also says this comes a few days before a round of US-Iranian talks were due in Oman. This was aimed at finding a diplomatic solution to the standoff over Iran's nuclear program. So it's quite telling and interesting that this took place just before, that was the 10th, this is the 12th of June, this is meant to take place. So it's telling, very telling. We're not the US then, this is Marco Rubio, we were not involved in the strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us they believe the action was necessary for their own self-defense. He says, let me be clear, Iran should not target US interests or personnel as we were not involved. So what could this cause in terms of oil prices? Well, it could hit 100, and this is from JP Morgan analysts then. They've said it could hit $130 in a worst case scenario. I genuinely think it could get up to 150 in a worst case scenario. I don't think it will get there because I don't think that them restricting the oil is going to be helpful for them long term. It'll cut off a lot of funding and everything else. But it did surge 5% yesterday, and this was on reports the US embassy in Iraq was evacuated. A number of embassies have been evacuated. A lot of personnel have left Bahrain, Kuwait. British Navy issued a very rare warning to ships in the region, stated it had been made aware of something that could occur. Escalation of military activity is also increasing there. And what else? The timeline for negotiations is further compressed. This is the vote by the IAEA Board of Governors on Iran's northern non-compliance, with the nuclear non-proliferation obligations. This was meant to be June 12th in Vienna. So this is going to be very difficult now. $120, $130, again, another analyst thinks, per barrel here. Over the past 40 years, they have made numerous threats to close the strait whenever they felt that its economic sovereignty was challenged, or militarily as well. But actually, if you look at this, crucially, even when the sanctions were imposed, Iran refrained from closing the passageway. So we kind of have a previous example here. This is indicating to me a preference to avoid conflict from hybrid warfare to full-blown warfare. I mean, they'd lose so much money in the pipeline and the flows if they did close the strait. Saudi exports most of its oil through the strait as well. It can be diverted through a pipeline, but they do put most of it through the strait. 85% of Iraqi oil also flows through the strait. Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain have no option but to ship their oil through the waterway. So this would cause massive issues with the Middle Eastern partners or other countries in the region. But we could see other things take place. But you think about the tanker war of the 1980s, if you remember that far back. This is when there was 259 oil tankers were attacked between 84 and 87. Still, it didn't affect the oil prices in the same way. I want to move on to, we'll come on to the UK economy in a moment, but another big one that's taking place at the moment is the job losses. There's massive movement both in the UK, European Union and the US at the moment on jobs. I mean, you've got all these headlines non-stop. Procter & Gamble to cut 7,000 jobs. This was just announced last week. We have US recurring jobless claims jumped to the highest since end of 2021, adding to evidence it's taking unemployed Americans longer to find a new job. The spike in recurring claims coincides with a slowdown in hiring, suggesting that people out of work are struggling to find employment. Employers are cautious about growth prospects, leading to a relatively weak hiring rate and making it difficult for those who lose jobs to find a new one. I mean, this is non-stop. Business Insider is cutting 21% of staff, replacing them with AI. So they're actually replacing the staff with artificial intelligence. Business Insider, and I had about, a dozen of these articles. It's the same situation. People, companies are cutting jobs, and they're asking the question, can I replace this job with artificial intelligence? And that's why I made the rapid cash flow program. I talked about that on Wednesday. That program is still on sale. It only goes on sale once or twice a year. So it's just on sale this week. I'm going to end that this weekend though. So next 24 hours, 48 hours, that program will end. If you want to get that on sale, it's a massive 90% discount. Why? Because some people need to take that, whether it's for you, whether it's your spouse, whether you just need a second income stream. Teaches you to make your own business for almost nothing, because we use free stuff. We use social media, we use all sorts of other things to actually grow the business digitally, and it's scalable. It's almost unlimited in scale. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in, it's basically 3 programs in one. One teaches you all about entrepreneurship, one's all the digital side, one teaches you how to set up your business, all the way through to selling it if that's what you want to do, exit. There's so much in there. It's just, people say it's just overwhelming sometimes with the amount in there, but it will help you to get set up and started. Okay, links for everything are below in the description, by the way. UK exports then have seen a record monthly drop. This is fresh data. It's just come out from the ONS, Office of National Statistics. Wow. The exports of goods to the US fell by £2 billion in the last 4 months. That is mind-blowing. £2 billion of goods that didn't go to the US. Figures have also revealed the total trade deficit grew to 11.5 billion. This is taking a massive toll on British firms. There's reports that they could start firing workers, which we don't want, because that will lead into employment scarring. Employment scarring basically means, this economic principle, as more people are fired and lose their jobs, they're not having an income, so they can't spend into the economy. If they're not spending into the economy, it means that those businesses aren't receiving money from those people that were working, so the businesses earn less money, they start firing or making cuts, and it's a vicious cycle all the way down until you get massive, massive unemployment levels. So we don't want this. Exports to the UK fell by more than 4% as well. Non-EU countries dropped by 12.6%. The UK is getting hammered at the moment. But the UK stands to suffer from a weakened world economy as well. The World Bank has just put out a report saying global growth is falling to its lowest pace since 2008, and the UK is going to get smashed. It didn't say that, I've just added that in. UK economy shrank sharply in April as well. It contracted 0.3% in April. They just don't know how they're going to get out of this. And Rachel Reeves has got her master plan, which is more like an amateur plan as opposed to a master plan. What's she going to do? She's going to raise taxes again, because they're £5 billion short, plus all the rest of the stuff they're going to be short. They think they're going to raise prices, raise taxes again, looking at pensions and all sorts of other things. The monthly GDP data showed industrial production and services output in particular fell sharply in April, while construction output grew. April saw the largest monthly fall on record in goods exports to the US. This is all sorts of right across the board. They are blaming tariffs. Also, that's who Rachel Reeves has blamed it on. She said, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, we'd have a stronger economy. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't, Rachel Reeves, have a strong economy. Not that you watch my show, but you wouldn't have a strong economy if it wasn't for President Trump. All this is self-inflicted because the government is not taking advice from economists. Economists are not building the plan. They're just doing their own thing. Politicians, when they're running the economy, is a recipe for disaster. Domestic tax rises have also been blamed for the steep decline in economic activity. British businesses are being confronted with an increase in national insurance and a rise in the minimum wage. So these things hit. Stamp duty as well meant there was a decrease of, are you ready for this? 63.5% in UK residential property transactions since the previous month. 63.5% drop in property transactions because of the new stamp duty tax. So what did Rachel Reeves say, the UK Chancellor? She said, well, it's disappointing because it stops her from delivering economic renewal, but she said that it's not going to stop her. Stop her doing what? I mean, stop her from crashing the economy even more. The other one then is China's exports to the US clocked their sharpest drop in more than 5 years, down 34% in May. 34.5% more specifically, while imports dropped over 18%. But I can tell you already what this is going to say, that they've offset it. China has been planning this for a long time. What have they done? They've offset this by shipping to Southeast Asian countries instead. So that jumped 15%. Also, the European Union and countries in Africa rose 12% and 33%. So they've already offset all of the losses from the US. Their trade surplus jumped from 25%. It's now 103 billion in May. So it increased, the trade surplus increased 25%. Still, export growth in May slowed from an 8% surge in April. Very interesting indeed. Now, I don't know if you've been seeing all these articles that have been coming out from the Telegraph, but they are just non-stop showing you nuclear strikes. This is what's going to happen to the UK unless we take action. We now need these nuclear bombers. This is what this article says. It's just non-stop media to justify all of this new spending and getting people into the military. What's this? Again, another one. Look at this. Same, just non-stop. A nuclear strike on Britain is a real possibility. Here's what we need to do, he says. The Strategic Defence Review announcement this week that the MOD and the NHS must prepare for a nuclear attack. Really? Must prepare for a nuclear attack. Okay. And the British Army must be able to fight and survive in a radiation contaminated environment. Is he crazy? Is he feeling okay? Why would you write this? Why on earth he wrote this, I don't know. He then says, but we should not panic. But the Kremlin's nuclear threats towards London must be taken seriously, very seriously. And they got all these people and experts to plan out exactly where they think the strike will be. And this is the fallout in London. I mean, so alarmist. They're just doing anything they can at the minute to get people to get afraid, so they'll get behind this massive, push for war. And we just saw another report that the EU is trying, well, it's more predominantly France, is trying to block Britain from getting into the EU military funds. That's what they're trying to do at the moment. They don't want Britain to get into this military fund. It is just crazy. All this stuff, we're just seeing more escalation because it's very profitable. You watch make sure you get in my email newsletter, by the way. It comes out every Friday, just as a reminder. It includes a lot of this, but it talks about stuff that's outside the scope of the video, where I can go into more granular stuff. But it tells you, watch this now, watch defense stocks, watch energy, watch this. This is what we're going to see coming up as a result of all this. Crazy, just crazy times, ladies and gents. But just a reminder about the two courses, though, the two programs. Highly recommend that you get those programs. If not one, get both the programs. It will really help you out. 30-day money back guarantee. Or if you really don't like one of the courses, then we can swap you onto another course. That's not even if the other course isn't on sale, we're happy to swap you onto it. It's not an issue at all. Other than that, thanks for being a subscriber here. Thanks for being on the live stream. Really appreciate you all. My throat is recovering from surgery. It's still a bit raspy, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. Thanks so much. Have a blessed weekend. God bless you all and your families. Take care. I'll see you next time.